Alrighty, recording. Yes, it's recording.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. We express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. We seek blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, to recap a few things. Last week,
sorry, I just took a picture of you.
There's going to be a meme. Yeah. So,
I'm just pushing buttons. I'm like, what does this do?
okay. And then it emails it to NSA. So last week we spoke about the third command of the Quran. We had that fun exercise. We were all telling each other how much we like each other. And also in Ayah 25, in addition to the third command, we're speaking of four things that are promised to those who believe and do right: gardens beneath which rivers flow, the fruits of paradise, pure companionship, and eternity. And one point we made was that these four things, if you think about all the big projects that we work towards, you're usually working towards one or more of these four things. And so here, part of the point is that you will get them with Allah Ta'ala in paradise. We did 26 and 27, yeah? Did we do that last time?
Sorry, we were in 20.
I don't remember if we got past 25. It's all a blur.
Actions come from good works, not just faith. Also, I don't know. Iman and Amal Salih.
Okay, so that was the beginning of Ayah 25. That's another important point. We did 26 and 27. Okay, so 26 and 27, we had a few points. One, it is not beneath Allah Ta'ala to speak about what are seemingly insignificant things when giving guidance. Now, one point that I left out from there, a lesson that's taken from this, the fact that Allah Ta'ala gives us very important, profound lessons using spiders, bugs, bees, ants, what have you, is that central to our understanding of our deen is that it's not the monopoly of the scholars. Okay? This is a huge, huge point, that I can be someone who is illiterate, okay, as were so many of the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, and I can understand the deen to a profound, profound level. Okay? And this really plays out in terms of authority. Because in Christianity, what was the authority at the time? This is long before the Protestant Reformation. The authority was the church, right? And then in Jewish tradition, it was a written tradition. And so the authority was with the scholars, the rabbis, who are already coming from a privileged class. And by virtue of the fact that even our preservation of our most sacred texts is primarily through memorization, it makes it accessible to everyone, regardless of your educated class, regardless of socioeconomic class. This is a very, very heavy point that's taken from this simple lesson, that it is not beneath Allah Ta'ala to speak about insignificant things to make very profound points. Then we also had the bare minimum relationship that I have to have with the Quran. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, as for those who believe, فَيَعْلَمُونَ, they know أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, that this is the truth from their Rabb. So what is the point? My bare minimum relationship with the Quran is to regard it as truth. Truth from our Rabb, meaning beneficial truth. Meaning, I may not understand any of the ayahs, but my starting point, my bare minimum, is to regard it all as truth. And then we spoke about these kafirs who were mocking. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and for those who rejected, فَيَقُولُونَ, and they say, مَاذَا, what أَرَادَ اللَّهُ, what does Allah intend, بِهَذَا مَثَلًا, by these examples. And the point we're making there is that people who have rejected, some of those people, their approach is one of mockery. So the example I gave last week was that you have these atheist fundamentalist preachers like Bill Maher, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, who make some good points, but overall, what is their argument? That you have to be stupid to be a believer. Right? That's essentially the recurring theme. Most of their arguments are not even that strong, but that's the core of what they're saying. And then we have this very, very interesting phrase, يُدِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. So he lets many go astray by this, and he guides many by this. Now what is this? It can be referring to the metaphors, or this can be referring to the Quran. So if we think about this in terms of the Quran, that through the Quran, Allah Ta'ala may let many go astray, okay, which is a frightening concept. Okay. So what is it that determines whether or not I'm going to go astray? The next sentence. وَمَا يُدِلُّ بِهِ. He does not let anyone go astray with this. إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. Except for the fasiqeen. How do we translate fasiqeen? The rebels. Raise your hand. Okay, feel free to interrupt. Okay. The fasiqeen are the rebels. The metaphor I give you of the fasiq is you have a river and the water is bursting beyond the banks of the river. That's a fasiq. And then we have three attributes in ayah 27 of the fasiqeen. الَّذِينَ يَنْقُدُونَ أَحْدَ اللَّهِ. So those who break the covenant of Allah مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ. After confirming it, after
So the reason
ratifying
why the fasiq, that analogy, or at least that's the literal meaning, is because the river is not giving any regard to the bank. It's just loosely,
Exactly.
like,
It's just going beyond
disregarding
it's going beyond its boundaries.
its
Absolutely.
boundaries, yeah.
Good thing that you pointed out.
Yeah.
So one attribute of the fasiqs is that they break their pact with Allah after confirming it. And the most common understanding of this, at least in my experience, is that this is referring to the original mithaq, the original covenant that we made with Allah Ta'ala in prehistory, where we were all rounded up, and Allah Ta'ala says to us, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we confirmed Bala. And from there is the idea that we are hardwired, that our default state is to have a relationship with Allah Ta'ala. We are hardwired, our default state is the sense of right and wrong. And this plays out, this is also important, because there's many theories about human nature. So one theory is that you're tabula rasa, you're a blank slate. And then through nurture, you grow into whatever you are. Another theory, Christian theory, textbook Christian theory is what? That human nature is innately evil. Okay? And this traces itself back to original sin. In fact, I spoke on this interfaith panel at this high school, and I forgot what the topic was, something about, I don't know, text or community or something. And then these two girls came up to me, and they were just going on the attack, insisting that human nature was evil. Evil, 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 evil. And they just seemed so unhappy. And I thought, if you want to think human nature is evil, go ahead, leave me alone. They were math teachers, which I thought was also interesting. I thought they were 12 years old. And then I found out like 2 years later, my friend who's also a teacher, they said, no, they were math teachers in that department. Okay. So, second attribute is they split what Allah Ta'ala has ordered to be joined. And what is this? Primarily understood as splitting a relationship with people, and in particular, splitting a relationship with your relatives without cause. Right? When you break off your relationship with your relatives and you cut them off, and we have a teaching that if you have relatives, Allah Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment speaks to that relationship itself, which I think is pretty interesting. And if you break that relationship, Allah Ta'ala breaks His relationship with you, okay? Which is also frightening. Third is they spread corruption in the earth. These are three attributes of the fasiq. And so one is your relationship with Allah, second is your relationship with people, and third is your relationship with the world.
You know, one concept, Omar, that I recently began to realize is that from everything that you've talked about in your last time of the lecture, and also going through this one once again, that there's certain aspects of our soul's happiness that are hardwired, right? And if we take the universal creation, the universal soul where we were, the Sufis are really they're spending their entire life trying to achieve that similar state of happiness by distancing themselves from all the things that drive them to this world, right? And so distancing and cutting themselves off and really spending more and more time with zikr and stuff, because the true happiness that we experienced in our entire existence was when we were at that level, at that phase, right? And so so all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us to do, like the sunnah of the Prophet, is really to achieve satisfaction and happiness. It's not because, you know, it's not a chore. It's not that you're doing this for any other reason than your own happiness. Mm-hmm. And so it actually like doing fasting and doing doing Hajj, doing prayers, you know, all of the different injunctions that we have. The whole purpose of all of that, what I'm beginning to realize, is there's no other purpose than to allow us to achieve happiness, because that this is the prescription towards happiness.
Well,
right?
I mean, let's look really, really briefly.
I actually had a question about that. Like,
yeah,
I agree. Like, you know, doing like religious actions, especially dhikr, like, you know, you feel peace in your heart. But then I have questions like, then why in like hadith are they like using terms like be a prisoner in this world? Like, why is that kind of terminology used?
Okay, So, be a prisoner in this world, what does that mean?
Maybe a stranger.
No,
Doesn't it
there's
mean like
two
you have to
different
follow
ones.
set regulations and rules? That's what I always
So,
thought.
in terms of the common understanding that we have, be a prisoner means you're basically not allowed to do anything. Kafirs are allowed to do everything because they have no boundaries. But what is the actual meaning of being a prisoner? That this world is holding you back from getting even closer to Allah Ta'ala. That's the prison. Right? That this is the teaching of Ali radiallahu anh. That when we say this world is paradise for the kafirs and prison for the believers, we commonly understand that how? That the believers are not allowed to do anything, kafirs are allowed to go free, and do whatever. But the commentary by Ali radiallahu anh is that the paradise of the kafir is right in front of them, whatever they want it to be. The paradise for us is to be closer to Allah Ta'ala. And you can do everything you can in this dunya, but ultimately there's still one veil that prevents you, that will not be crossed until after we pass away. That's the prison. Yeah.
We have a technical.
Yeah, sorry. They're muted and I can't unmute them. There's a hardware mute and I don't know how to unmute that.
Macintosh.
Something if it blows that. Okay.
Do you get that meaning only from the commentary, or do you get it
She's
from the
muted.
actual Arabic?
She muted herself.
Me, the
Like, does
Arabic.
the Arabic words actually
She
translate to
muted
prisoner?
Yeah.
Oh.
That mutes us, but there's like a hardware mute.
I think that just makes more sense too.
Which
yeah,
one?
it makes a lot.
The second one that you said.
Yeah.
I
I
went to
hadn't
my
heard that
search,
before,
but
but
there's no.
Yeah, I mean, the greater idea related to, we'll talk about this more when we resolve our technical difficulties, is the idea, thinking back to what we spoke about in Al-Fatiha when we spoke about the straight path, right? And what was something we kept emphasizing? With Al-Fatiha, how I think of Allah Ta'ala will affect how I look at whatever happens in my life, right? Especially struggles. If I see Allah Ta'ala as punisher, and I'm hit with a struggle, car accident, sickness, tragedy, I'm going to see that as a punishment from Allah Ta'ala. If I truly see Allah Ta'ala as a source of mercy, we all say it as lip service, but if I really feel that, then, and I get into a car accident or I have a family tragedy, then I think, wow, this was so horribly bad, but it could have been even worse, right? And then when we spoke about Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, guide us on the straight path, what is the lesson to take from here? That when we speak of straight path, we speak of the easiest way, the most direct way, the simplest way, correct? But how I understand the deen will then affect how I practice the deen. So if I, in my heart, if I think of the deen as something heavy, okay, then that's how all the practices are going to feel, correct? Some are going to feel very, very heavy. If I, in my heart, if I really feel like the deen is something that makes my life wonderful, then it's going to affect how I see all the different practices. They are going to seem much more appealing. And so a problem right now overall in our community, at least locally, is that when we're often presenting the deen, we're presenting it as something heavy, heavy, crushing thing that you are guaranteed to fail. And that might work for a generation, it's not going to work for our grandkids' generation, right? Because there's too many other options. So building the point, related to your point, Muhammad, let's look really briefly at Surah Al-Bayyinah. This is kind of supporting what you're saying. Yeah, does everyone have something to look at?
What chapter is it?
98. Yeah, relax, enjoy yourself. 98, Surah Al-Bayyinah. Everyone have something to look at? You need something to, maybe you can share something. Okay. You guys have something on your phones or something? Yeah, everyone has something. Okay. So, Surah Al-Bayyinah. So, Bayyinah is the clear evidence. Lam yakun alladhina, well, let's just go through the translation. Okay. Those who have rejected among the people of the book and the mushriks, polytheists, will not stop from what they're doing until they're given clear evidence, Bayyinah. And what is the clear evidence? Essentially the next two ayahs. Rasulun min Allahi, so a messenger from Allah, yatlu, reciting, suhufan mutahara, purified pages. Okay. And then ayah 3, fiha kutubun qayyima, so in which are essentially established prescriptions. Okay. So what are we saying here? First point is that those who have rejected among the people of the book, among the mushriks, they're not going to stop unless you can give them this. Okay. So what is the proof of Islam? It's actually the whole package. It's the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quran. Okay. And then it says, okay, ayah 4, and nor did those who were given the scripture become divided until after clear evidence came to them. And then they were not commanded to do anything except to worship Allah, being sincere to Him, and being sincere to Him, hunafa, and upright, and to establish salah and give the zakah, and that is correct religion. Okay.
Do you want to use it? Are you using? It sounds like you're running into the Muslim laws and translation issue. Need another translation?
Oh no, I'm looking at the Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm going back and forth between the Arabic and a translation, and so I'm just said, okay, forget that. I'm just going to leave the Arabic. Yeah. And then it says, ayah 6, okay. Indeed, those who have rejected from the people of the book and the mushriks, they will be in the fire of hell, abiding there eternally. Okay. They are the worst of creatures. And indeed, those who believed and did right, they are the best of creatures. Okay. All of this is set up for basically the point that you're now making, or is in ayah 8. Their reward is with their Rabb, gardens of eternity, eternal gardens underneath which rivers flow, and they will abide therein forever. And then here's the key: radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. They are pleased with Allah, and Allah is pleased with them. And that is for whoever has fear of the Lord. And so the point.
That's the salvation, right? And you've accepted this prescription as your prescription for your true happiness and salvation.
Yeah,
And through that, you've achieved, peace in your heart, and Allah's pleased with you. Yeah. To underscore that further, I remember hearing Hussein's one of Hussein's lectures.
Yeah.
When he went to Pakistan, he describes, this whole, you're a Pritzker and you can get every single coffee, every single drink, everything you want. It's just right at your fingertips,
Yeah.
And you
You're
go there
miserable.
to Pakistan, and I remember talking to his dad, like in the first few months that he was there, he was sick.
Yeah, he was like sick all the time.
Sick all the time, But then when he came back, he was just like, and when his dad actually told him to come back,
Yeah.
but he was just like, he never had this much personal satisfaction
Yeah.
and peace in his heart. And the people that he interacted with, they had less than nothing.
Yeah.
Like he used to literally tie his belt because there's hardly anything,
Yeah.
But these people are so happy, because they've realized this.
Mhm.
How many times
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't know, I was just gonna say that when I was listening to Hussein Sattar's Tasawwuf lectures, you were you laughing? Because I always have a commentary about his Tasawwuf lectures.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's this concept that's very harsh. Like he was like, oh well, one of the ways, this is actually kind of cool. He said that one of the ways that you figure out if you're in the right place in your heart is when you're praying, do you feel like you're rushing through it, or are you really at peace when you're in prayer? Makes sense, But he was like, oh, so if you feel like you're rushing through it, a good thing to do is to that whole concept of your body and your soul make up your being.
Okay.
So if one grows, the other has to diminish,
Yeah.
So he's like, that means that your body, nafs, or whatever you want to call it, is overtaking the soul space, I guess. So he's like, then you have to give your body a hit, So it was like, he was like, sleep less, don't eat fast. I mean, it was just too much. I feel like there has to be a healthy balance here, I feel like it was like, oh yeah, you just want to fast. You want to just not sleep.
Mm.
To me, that
And
just.
you're taking it in the extreme sense.
But that's how he's saying
what he's
it, though.
telling you
He
is that when he was in Pakistan, for example,
Mhm.
he was eating less, he was sleeping less, but when you go to Hajj, for example, you literally sleep 2 hours of the day,
Mm.
but you have the
But
most
that's not
spiritual
life, though.
satisfaction.
And that's
Okay,
like Ramadan
so-
too.
Okay, so to put all your points together.
I have one last one, but
Nosheen has a point too.
Yeah.
I was listening to I went to this Dr. Umar thing, and he was like, a lot of people nowadays they're shying away from the whole not eating thing and not sleeping as much, but he's like, it's in Islam that he was basically saying the same thing that Sheikh Hussein was saying, eat less, sleep less. He was like, it's the hadith, the 1/3 hadith that everybody knows, but he was like, that's the exception. If you have to eat a lot, eat 1/3, but otherwise eat enough that you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's more in the presentation.
Yeah.
So I think it's in the presentation, it's just the manner in which he approaches it that seems harsh, because truthfully, if you're slothful on a weekend, you're not going to get anything done, you're going to feel crappy about it, depending on who you are. But I'm just saying, if you wake up early, you sleep a little bit less, and you're more productive, you're happier. I mean, I don't know, is that you know what I'm saying? But
Sure.
at the same time, like I think he takes it to an extreme. He's just like, well, you got to give the body a hit, and I just
Yeah.
don't like to think of it that way. Like
Okay, so
I personally just have a
part
problem
of it,
with that.
part of it could be the presentation. I'll put it like this: like usually in Tasawwuf lectures, they're speaking about the people who are aiming for like the highest height, right?
But why do you have to be destructive to an amanat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is your body, to do that?
But that's not what they're saying. But
But
what
it
they're
is,
saying,
though.
but what they're speaking about is very, very aggressive discipline. So, for example, it's one thing to talk about physical fitness. It's something different to talk about being an Olympic athlete, right? So, for the Olympic athlete, all the language is going to be much more strict and severe, right? And so, in terms of tasawwuf, that's sort of the analogy, that if I'm aspiring to be super believer, then the language is usually a lot more direct, a lot more harsh, right? Because you see this with Hamza Yusuf also. His tasawwuf type lectures are way, way more direct and brutal in their language. And it's the same point. The point is that if it's a conversation for the masses about being a good Muslim, then the language is going to be much, much more gentle and light.
I'm just not ready for these lectures.
Could be. But if you're aspiring to be, at the super level of anything, then it's the demand is much higher.
So just going back to Muhammad's point, when you go, I mean, when anybody goes back through their life and they see sort of where there's points where you're living in an apartment, you don't have a home yet, you don't have kids yet, all these things at that point actually. When you were freed of a lot of other responsibilities, you might have been happier at that point than now when you have a lot of other things that you have to take care of. But what I find difficult with is some of they're not obligatory, but things that are meant to bring you closer to Allah, like the waking up at night for the hajjud and doing the ishraq, it's just impossible with my job to do that. So how can you?
But it's not an obligation, though.
I know it's not obligatory, but if you want to go like beyond,
Sure.
your obligatory,
But isn't that enough? Like at least you want to do that. You know what I mean?
Well,
But the thing is, it seems like it's mentioned in the Quran. Get up at night, pray, and then when you're supposed to sleep, when you're supposed to go to
That's what
work.
I'm talking about. Where's our gallons?
well,
That's the extra credit, right?
yeah.
That's the
Like
extra
you just have to
credit.
get up 15 minutes before, like just a little bit before 5.
It's like it's not as hard as you think. I got a job
Yeah.
too.
She's like, I
They-
can-
All right,
You
we
don't
have to
like,
get
just
there.
for,
What
like,
I'm
just do 2 rakats. Don't be like, okay, I'm gonna get up all night and pray. Just be like, and
But
if
it
it's
is-
small and consistent, like
Yeah.
don't try
I mean,
it.
this
You can't
is
do
this
I'm
is
that.
like
a
one of
fundamental
those people
point.
who just try to get Fajr in before the end.
Right? Like
Sure.
sleeping is like.
But I mean, but there's other things that can be done, right? I mean, it's not like this is the only pathway to get closer to Allah.
I guess that's
yeah.
sorry. Just it's one of those things where when I was in medical school, I used to be doing
So were you happier before you got married and had all
No,
these things?
well, no, but I had more time.
Yeah.
You had
The thing is that all the students, all the parent, all the uncles were worried that why am I wasting my time? How do I have time to go keep up with my medical school studies while I'm doing all these things in the masjid? And I kind of tell them flip without even thinking about it. I'm never going to have more time than I have right now.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that was true, and so at those points, in other words, at this point in your life, there's a reason why marriage is called half of the iman. It's not because it's hard in the sense that you're always fighting or something like that. That's simple. Well, I'm not gonna. But the idea is that you have a lot more responsibilities and you get rewarded for those.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words. You may have prayed 30. You may have had the time to pray Salat al-Tasbih every night when you were a medical student in Nasheen, but you probably get more thawab for
Serving
taking
your
care
husband.
for taking care of
That's right.
for taking care of Suleiman. In other words,
Yeah.
don't. I guess you have the intention at some point to do it, but I don't think we need to be too
But
harsh on it.
I think
I
that if you
understand
think
that
to yourself,
point.
Nosheen, like I know for myself, like before I wasn't even able to get up for Fajr. Honestly, as hard as I tried, I just couldn't do it, And now it's like before going to Hajj, like a month before, we just decided, anything happens, we're gonna wake up for Fajr. We have to do it, And so now we get a Fudger. It's like the norm now, right? So it's like you move up on a ladder, you know. And then now it's like, what can we do? How can we change our life to go to, you know, do more nafil in our prayers, kind of thing. So it's like we have to recognize that, you know, when you're the 3rd grade, 4th grade is always more difficult, right? But when you get to the 4th grade, then you start preparing to get to the 5th grade and the 6th grade. It's a ladder, you know.
Well, I understand the point that, you know, with the right intention, anything you do is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there are certain things within your deen that, you know, resonate within you.
Yeah, sure.
Say it's prayer. Say it's going into sujood. Like those things that help you remember Allah and bring you closer to Him. For everyone, it may be something different.
Sure, of course.
So, I feel like that might be something that I, you know, would benefit from if I could just do.
Is it okay? So suppose your strategy was all you're gonna do for a while is just get out of bed, no wudu, nothing, and just start doing sajda. Is that possible?
Maybe.
Try that.
Okay.
Yeah. No wudu, no nothing. Don't even worry about facing Makkah or anything. No hijab, nothing. Start doing sajda.
What if you just think about doing sajda while you're in bed?
It's still better.
That's actually thicker.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're making thicker. for
I've had
sure.
dreams where I've like prayed all of my fajr and I'm like, oh yeah, that was good. And
See,
yeah.
I always get those dreams when I'm missing Fajr, right?
Oh.
I'll get
Yeah.
these super pious dreams. I'm on Hajj, and then I'm like, wow, this is great. Or I'll hear the adhan throughout my dream, and then
Then,
just
like,
sleeping.
you're like,
It's like, wow, what a bright
is this
morning.
supposed to remind me to do something?
Yeah, exactly. So, nevertheless, the key point being that Allah Ta'ala's default relationship that we can take with this ayah, building on your question, his default relationship with everyone is guidance. And the key to misguidance is misconduct. Misconduct in relationship with Allah Ta'ala, misconduct in relationship with people, misconduct in relationship with the world. Now the world here you can read two ways. The world as the community, and the world as in the earth itself. So what does it say at the end? Ula'ika humul khasirun. These are the losers. I just like saying that. Right. And so this is literally the opposite of the people of taqwa, right? Because what did it say at the beginning of the surah about the people of taqwa? These are the people who have guidance, and these are the people who are successful. These are the people who have misguidance, and these people are the ones who are losers. Something pleasure about that word. Okay. So what is the point here? The point here is that Allah Ta'ala's default relationship with me is one of guidance. Okay. Which means what? That if I can squeeze in a small effort consistently, then the door opens wide. Right? And I just have to figure out what that small effort is that I can do consistently. It might be, you know, just the basic sajda, right? Or it might be something else. You know? I mean, I always give the example of my father, which I'm sure I did last week and the week before, who literally one day just decided he's going to make all his 5 prayers in the masjid. You know, just engineer. All the masjids were half an hour away at the time, and he just decided one day he's going to do this. And so now he's been doing it for a couple of decades. I mean, he's retired and everything. Now the masjid's 5 minutes away. Back then, half an hour to get to the masjid, 5-minute prayer, half an hour to come back. But he just made himself do it one day.
You know, one thing that I'm struggling with is, you know, like, I look at someone like, again, we keep bringing up Hussein Sattar,
Yeah.
and he's
He's
just
our
a great
peer,
example of the one who's kind of accomplished both, you know? And, I mean, this guy, like, he does so much, you know?
Subhanallah.
I mean, smile, and like, here, I fall asleep, you know? I have a hard time waking up, but I'm doing Fajr now, but, I mean, how can you get your body and your soul to require less rest so you can be more productive, you know? And he says that what trained him was his experience in Pakistan, you know, because he was on that schedule where you accomplish tons of stuff over a very short period of time, you know. And so, what kind of training can you do that you can actually, you know, require less rest and be more productive? And I haven't figured that out yet. You know?
Shaykh Talab screaming over your head, you only got so much time left.
Yeah.
And somehow all of a sudden you were able to manage with a lot less sleep during those
That's
2
true.
weeks.
I mean, we did it, but I tell you, I slept for a week after I came back. I mean, you know, I slept for a week after I came back.
Like, you guys know your brother Saad, right? Saad Qadi.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying like he like never sleeps. So he was saying like we're like that's like I'm like that's unhealthy. Like you need to sleep at least 6 hours, right? He's like this is I don't know this is an example. Like it just kind of made me understand. He was like You know, like my kids, like they will sleep for like 3 hours and they'll be ready to go like right after. And he was saying that like that's all you really need, but you like throughout your life you've always been sleeping like 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever, and then your body gets used to that, so it needs it. But then if you kind of strip it away, like after a while you'll get used to that same like.
Physicians, what do you guys think?
I don't know.
I mean, you need
Physicians, do you agree with this?
so the sleep experts say you need about 3 to 4 hours of REM sleep to
Okay.
recharge.
So meaning continuous, you have to have a
Continuous
unit of
sleep,
3 to 4
yeah.
hours. But how much do you need in a day?
I'm saying in a day, in 24 hours,
That's
you need
it?
about 3, that's all you need.
But how
yeah.
long does it take to get to REM?
REM sleep. You have
Yeah,
to
to
get
REM sleep.
Oh,
takes a little
Doesn't
while.
it take a while to get there?
Yeah.
Basically, to
Yeah.
a sleep you can dream in. The best way to describe REM sleep
Okay.
is a sleep you can
So
actually
how
dream
long
in.
does that usually take?
It can take 2
Take
to
about
3 hours.
an hour and a half to go. Sorry, 30 minutes to get to.
Yeah, but it depends on how sleepy you are, right?
minutes.
Yeah.
It takes
I
like
can
2 hours,
get to it.
right?
There's also
Yeah, I mean,
Ayurvedic
it can take anywhere.
Yeah.
Some people get into REM sleep right away, right? So it depends on how long your sleep initiation
So
phase is.
the current dominant opinion is you need 3 to 4 hours
3 to
of
4 hours is
time,
what you need.
and however long it takes to get into
Yeah.
REM,
But
which
you
could
can't,
be
but you can't like
which could
set
be
your alarm to sleep for 4 hours. You're not going to get there, you know?
Yeah.
I just feel like that's kind of unreasonable. Like, I don't know.
The people who have been most productive, like let me give you an example. Like the guy who invented like the penicillin, you know,
Yeah.
drug, or the people who invented these ridiculous vaccines that have saved, you know,
Yeah.
millions and millions of people. They used to run their lab till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And Hussein Sadar said this in one of his lectures, like this guy that he knew from inner Chicago, this guy actually would have a lab meeting at midnight, and he had 7 people working with him. They would all work till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they'd go to sleep for a few hours, get up, and come back the next day.
Yeah,
So-
that was fun.
So it was like they've reached this state of like high level of functionality, you know, and they required less. And I think it's part of it is, you know, just our spirituality needs work on it. I think, you know, I think if we're spiritually like intact and spiritually like profoundly connected, you know, then it's like our heart requires like prayer on time. Our heart requires the Hajjat prayer. Our heart requires a shrug. It's like it's a requirement for us to be at peace, you know.
Well,
And
I mean,
without it, you don't feel right.
What about like the health consequences of like not sleeping?
well, that's what I'm
That's
asking.
what I'm saying.
That's
Like
what I'm
3 to 4
asking
hours,
physicians.
which you
But
need.
that's a,
You know?
I don't know. I just
And
because
I've met
that's
Well, you're a physician too, right?
yeah.
So what's your medical opinion?
What I feel is that in order for you to get REM sleep for 4 hours, you have to put in a lot more time.
Okay.
You know, so to say that I'm gonna like go to sleep at this time, wake up 4 hours later, that's not gonna give you REM sleep for 4 hours. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So it's
One thing
unreasonable.
is
to
also like intervals of sleep. If you like,
say, exactly.
if you but if you take like they say power naps,
Okay.
if you
Okay.
take that, you might not need as much sleep. I know that for me that's happened. You know,
Power
you
nap.
sleep,
Yeah, right.
and I used to do whenever you come home from work, you just sleep for like 45 minutes with that power nap. You're good for a long time. I mean,
That's
you don't
true.
have to
It
sleep at night.
recharges you,
True.
but
So that's the thing. Like I know what I'm saying. I mean, honestly, he never slept much anyway. Back in the day, we had
So what?
sleepovers and stuff.
He was up all
He was up before any of us were.
So,
And it was just
from what I understand, REM sleep, it doesn't come in like chunks of 3 or 4 hours. So
Okay.
it's like it alternates between REM sleep and then the opposite of REM.
Isn't the REM sleep only 5 minutes?
No,
No, no.
but it's
yeah,
not.
No,
Physicians, what do you think
So
about
in
what do
order
you
for
think about
that to happen,
Is he
I
correct?
think
Right.
there
That's the thing.
He's correct. Basically, you go through. You actually have phases.
Cycles.
So what happens? So you go in your. In other words, if you're and they talk about like for example, if you try and wake up in like hour and a half cycles, they talk about. Because if you try and wake up at say 4.5 hours, and some people might know this, it varies from person to person. You're probably better off getting off at 3 hours and 4.5 hours than you are trying to get up at 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah,
In other words,
ever since childhood, I would wake up almost exactly every 3 hours. Right, even now,
Yeah.
I'll wake up whatever time I go to bed. I'll wake up at like 3 hours, and I feel completely fresh, and I'm bored, so that I go back to sleep. Right? Yeah.
It's because you want your bottle.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. My blankie.
There's this Ayurvedic doctor, he's in California, and he was saying that the time of sleep is also really important. And
If I go to bed at 10,
time,
what was I do?
Yes.
the best time to sleep is between midnight and 3 a.m.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's like the best time.
So this is actually, you guys know Sabah Khashoggi?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Sabah's husband. He's a pediatric critical care guy, trained at Stanford, really smart guy. So he actually does a discipline called endobiogenics, where they take like the different hormonal axes and they figure out what is deficient and they treat it with herbs.
Okay.
Right? It's a very interesting discipline, and he's a very, very smart guy. And so I remember this point, and he said that, like, for people who are not sleeping during that time between 12 to 3, you're not going to be fulfilled.
Or you're saying that's the best time to be
To
asleep.
be asleep.
I think that was the best time to go to bed.
No, you should.
You should
He
be
said you
asleep
should
during
be.
that time.
You should
Yeah.
plan to be in bed by 11 o'clock.
It's like
so
you're
that you can-
hardwired to
yeah.
recharge during that
Yeah,
during
yeah,
that time.
yeah, that's totally true for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question. Like, what was like the what was the Prophet ﷺ's like sleep schedule? Because I know like he prayed like Tahajjud and like for so many hours, and his like did he sleep at night, or would he like sleep after Fajr and then, or like I know he slept after Asr maybe
Yeah,
during
the
that time.
core sleeping practice seems to be he would do Isha, and then he would do the witr, the sunnahs of Isha at home, and then he'd go right to sleep, or soon he'd go to sleep, and then wake up for Tahajjud, Fajr, or what is it, Awabin, Tahajjud, Fajr, then Sohbah with the companions, Duha, and then Asr time he'd have Qaylula, and that was like, I don't know how long that was. That seems to be the case.
What the nap part wasn't like 20 minutes or anything, right? It was like,
Well, okay, so the Quran speaks of going so far as though you disrobe completely, so I'm guessing it's something substantial. Right? But in terms of time, I don't know.
I guess to the point that everybody is different. The Prophet ﷺ, because you asked a question about the Prophet ﷺ, there's a hadith about that he went the first night, then he went the second night, and then he didn't come. And then when asked, and I'm paraphrasing here for those but the idea is that he said, Allah will never tire of giving you good reward for your actions, but you will tire of doing those good deeds. Do only those things that are in your capacity. So we're all very roughly, but we're all given different capacities. And if you read Surah the last ruku, the last ayat of when it says sleep a part of the night, or a third of the night, or the half of the night. In other words, everybody has individual capacities. So if 2 hours is too little for you, or 6 hours is too little for you, there's allowance for that. Maybe you'll make it up by fasting more. Maybe maybe you might have your own path to spirituality. Maybe your spirituality is not in nighttime period. Maybe your spirituality is being able to fast 3 days a month. 3 days a month, and then Mondays and Thursdays. Or sadaqah. Or sadaqah.
And the key goal is the consistency, right? The key goal is consistency. Even if
Yeah, sorry, that was the other part of that hadith. That do those things, the small things that you can do on a regular basis. That's the other part of the hadith I missed.
One of the things that we talked about during our last lecture that you said you would talk about this lecture is we said the influences that we have when we make decisions, right? So we're all hardwired, to do good, but then we have this evil voice inside us that tells us to do something, or the voice inside us that tells us to do something, and then there's the shaitan that's also there. So you were going to talk to us about influence, what influences our decisions and how people make one decision versus another.
Okay. You guys have any eraser here or something?
Oh,
napkins?
kids can use that one. Go get one.
Oh, this is the chair I should use.
Is that related to reverse?
Yeah, we were talking. I don't know what we were talking about. Remember when I asked that question.
Stool. Okay.
Do you remember what we were talking about, Mark? And I think this was in reference.
Yeah, what are you guys on? It's like, what?
Drugs.
Drugs. On, cook it.
those
We
warm
went
fuzzy
off on a
feelings from last
tangent
week.
about sleeping less.
Like, what ayah is this? Sleep apnea?
We're still basically.
We're talking about the
where we
faucets.
were like-
Oh, you're on faucets.
We're
Okay,
gonna
wow.
talk about sleep,
Which is
I don't
X.
even know.
Okay.
we're-
Spirituality.
I have a problem with
We're all
Eating
supposed
less.
to be.
Oh.
Okay. So starting with the fitra. 4 points about the fitra. So you're hardwired with some sort of consciousness of Allah. Actually, I really lost my spelling ability. So this is hardwired into your system, as is a consciousness of right and wrong. Okay, or we can call this a consciousness of your boundaries that you're not supposed to cross. This is hardwired within you. Look at it again, qualitative rather than quantitative. Okay? I don't know that you're hardwired to understand the attributes of Allah Ta'ala as opposed to have a consciousness of Allah Ta'ala. Okay? As well as right or wrong. But this consciousness is corruptible. And it is also purifiable. What's the ayah? قَدْ أَفْلَهَا مَنْ تَزَكَّى وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Okay. All right. So this is your fitra. This is what you're hardwired with as a person. Okay. So far, so good? Okay, erase? Okay. So then the question would become, where does corruption come from? And that would relate to the influences that you have upon you.
We did this with the Nufs lecture, I remember.
Yeah, I think we did. I don't know how long ago that was, though.
That was in the previous class.
Centuries ago. Okay. So, what are influences upon you?
Family.
Okay. We're going to call that the near ones, the qurba.
The society in which you choose to live.
Okay, so your overall society with emphasis on the ideals and categories.
How about the decisions that you make?
Yeah. All right, so your choices.
Your fifth row?
Okay, you're saying this because you remember it all?
I totally remember this, yeah.
She's like, yeah, I got this down. What's out here?
Your qadr's not on there. Your face.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Oh, sorry.
And then I think the last one was angel, and then like shaitan, right?
Yes. Wow. They're devil.
I've like done this lecture for a bunch of people because I think it's pretty amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take all credit, and I actually played those other people. Okay. So you can basically sum up all of your influences like this. Where's Allah in here?
Everywhere.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
That's the Allahu Alam crowd.
Yeah,
You're just
exactly.
never wrong.
Exactly. So he's interacting with you through multiple ways. Yeah.
He is everywhere.
So if you look at your interaction with Allah Ta'ala as being through all these things, He's sending these things at you. Okay. So your tendency, like inertia, your tendency with your fitra is to remain pure. That's your tendency. So when we said that you're hardwired with a consciousness of God, hardwired with a consciousness of right and wrong, also your tendency is to remain within correct boundaries. Your tendency is to remain good, to remain pure. Good. Your near ones, to understand the impact of the near ones, this is the hadith about the perfume salesman, right? That if you spend time with someone who's selling perfume, what's going to happen? Two things. One, you're going to start smelling like perfume. And on top of that, out of generosity, the perfume salesman, when you're buying something, is probably going to give you a little bit more, just out of friendliness. Okay? This is how you influence your friends. That's how your friends influence you. In contrast, if your friend is a blacksmith, then what's going to happen? Sooner or later, you're going to be covered in soot. Okay? So this is your inner circle. Okay? This is how your family members influence you, your close friends. Yes, Suleiman.
I don't get the difference between your influences and your choices.
Okay, yeah, we'll come to that. It's a very important question. Yeah. Okay. There's a reason I'm making that one last. So you're pretty sharp, mashallah. Okay. So the point being that whoever is part of your closest intimate circle, they affect you tremendously. Now, if you think about contemporary culture, what else is there? Television is there.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of time I might spend as just a regular person with people might be comparable to the amount of time I spend with the characters on Breaking Bad. Right? You know.
Oh, you got my attention.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Don't talk about the Breaking Bad, right? Okay, so seriously think about who are the people who are really part of your intimate circle. Because what is your psychology when you're with your intimate circle? You're lowering your guard quite a bit. Okay? This is why television, when I'm often lecturing about television, I often speak of it as an invasion of privacy. These are people you'd never allow in your house, right? But when you're watching them on the show, you're even lowering your guard completely because you're television. You're in the comfort of your home, and so the point is that this affects you tremendously. Society affects you in the sense that you embrace the worldviews of your society without usually realizing it, especially with focus on the ideals or categories. And I give the example of how, when I was no longer part of the 18 to 34 group, when birthday number 35 came, gosh, I was depressed because it's like I'm no longer youth and I haven't accomplished conquering the world like we're all being told we have to do. 36 was worse, 37 was worse. Right? Yeah. And then 37, this is really make you laugh. 37 is when they say is your like peak of beauty. So 38 sucked worse, 39. Then on top of that, 36 was even worse because why? If you do the math, that's the age the prophet was, peace be upon him. He was 40 according to Hijri calendar, right? Oh. And so that means now the prophet, peace be upon him, is my peer. We always think of him as older, right? And then by the time I got to 41, like, the Pakistani uncle began to take over. It's like, life goes on, who cares? Who cares, right? Yeah. But the point is that you embrace this a lot more than we realize. Okay, notions of success, notions of beauty, notions of the evil, notions of crime, that you're embodying this. Okay. How do angels influence you? Something we don't teach in Sunday schools that we should. Okay, that's a no for us. I never thought about this.
When Allah loves you, He influences others. Like the angels actually speak of you.
Okay, that's definitely true. But how does that influence me?
Maybe influences other people's interactions with you.
Okay, that's definitely true too.
Could it be like your awareness that they're recording your deeds?
Awareness.
Okay, all that's true. But how does that influence me?
Yeah, because if you know that they're like, if you know that they're recording.
Oh, my awareness that the angels are recording.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Because you're like,
I got something even better than all that. But finish your point.
I'm sure. No, like if you know that they're recording your deeds and that they're gonna be like, it's gonna be exposed basically.
Yeah,
on the day of judgment, then you're gonna I can't.
I'd say that is correct. Yeah. All right. Go to Surah 41. Surah Al-Fusilat. Ayah 30. You only have like first volume or something, right?
I do, yeah.
Tayyib just read that
Surah
too.
41, what ayah?
Ayah 30, 31. We're all taught a million times that the devil is always doing waswasa, right? He's always whispering in us.
Ayah what? 30?
Ayah 30. We'll wait for Mohammed to come back. I think he wants to look at the ayah, so he's getting some sort of a Quran type thing. Yeah. Surah 41, Ayah 30. 30 and 31. Did you read these today?
Yeah. Cool. To start the board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we need all the goodness for the depressing board meeting. It's like straight Jahannam. What is Adab and Alim, MCC board.
Anyway. Okay. Inna alladhina qalu. So, indeed, those who say, Rabbuna Allah, our Rabb is Allah, then istaqamu. Thumma istaqamu. I'm kind of mixing Arabic and English. And then they stand firm. Then look what happens. That the nazzalu alayhimul malaikatu. Angels descend upon them. Allah yakhafu wa la tahzanu wa abshiru bil jannah. And what are the angels saying? Do not fear, do not grieve, receive glad tidings of paradise. Allati kuntum tu'adun, that you were promised. Okay, this is an actual phenomenon that happens. If you believe, turn to Allah, and you're upright in your conduct, then angels come and they reinforce you. So, in the way that the devil, as we know, he is constantly whispering in your heart to make you go astray, so too is this happening. Okay. And so, Ayah 31, Nahnu awliya'ukum. We were your awliyas, we were your protectors, fil hayat dunya, in the life of the world, wa fil akhirati, and in the hereafter. And for you therein whatever you desire of your souls, and for you therein whatever you ask, meaning paradise. Ayah 32, a hospitable gift from Ghafur Rahim, from the most forgiving, most merciful. Okay. So this is something that happens when you are taking Allah Ta'ala as your Rabb and you're being upright in your conduct. That they are being sent to reinforce you. This is an actual thing that happens for each of us. Yeah? Have you guys been taught this before? Aside from these classes, yeah. This is so this is a reality.
Like, but what does that mean?
What does what mean?
Like, what do you mean angels command, like...
They do waswasa, but opposite.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of waswasa, right? So,
Oh, like, it's not
They
like...
do anti-waswasa.
yeah.
Oh, it's just like they calm you and stuff? Like, it's not like...
Could be calming, but it's in some manner that they're speaking to you in some unseen sense about you. They're saying these things to you.
Say something good about your husband.
Yeah. Yeah. But when she does that, then the angels say, you have a reward from Allah. Right? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. This is also what's happening for us when we make upright choices. Yeah.
Well, you know what's really interesting about this chart is that, like, everything influences, like, everything else,
Yeah.
right? So you're born with the fitra, and you make certain choices, and then those choices determine your surroundings,
Sure.
and they determine your response.
Especially as you get older, yeah.
So then your clean slate of the fitra is molded by all of that stuff.
Yeah, or reinforced, yeah. Or it can be corrupted. So ultimately, what is the main thing that I'm controlling here? My choices. As I get older, through my choices, I'm determining who I spend my time with. Right? What society I'm living in, how much society impacts me. And then these responses are the result of my choices. Okay. So what is this? This is the self, the environment, and the unseen. So these would be your influences. You can sum it all up into these 6.
Is that influences on your fitra, and fitra is part of it? Or
Well, it's the influence on you, and your fitra is part of you. Right? So your fitra is also something that influences you. So fitra is not so much you, but it's what you're born in. So your natural tendency towards goodness and to be repulsed by evil is your fitra. But if I make corrupt choices, I'm weakening my fitra, right? And it's something that desires to be pure, but as I make more and more corrupt choices, it becomes harder for it to be pure. So that would be the answer. Okay. So, coming back to ayah 27 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay, from there, another point to think about that we mentioned was that ayahs 21 through 29, essentially they're summing up the Makki Quran, the Quran of Makkah. The whole surah, most of it, the Prophet peace be upon him receives after Hijrah, that's this Madani, except for the last 2 ayahs which were revealed on the night journey. But 21 through 29, whether or not they were revealed in Makkah is one thing, but they're considered to be a summary of the Makki Quran. One way to argue that it might have been even revealed in Makkah is that you don't see Ya Ayyuhan Nas in Madani ayahs, meaning, oh humanity. Here you see Ya Ayyuhan Nas in ayah 21. It's a small point, it's an academic point. But why is it important to think about the fact that these ayahs are summing up the Makki Quran, that the Makki Quran is setting up the whole foundation of the Ummah. Right? And it's focused not so much on commands as much as focused on your consciousness, your Iman. Because what are the 3 commands we've had so far now? First one, anyone?
Worship
Abd of your Rabb. Second one?
Don't knowingly ascribe rivals.
Yeah, don't knowingly make rivals to Allah. Third one?
Give good things.
Give good news to those who believe you're right, that they will have guardians.
They're teachable.
Sorry?
They're teachable. It only took me 6 classes to get it. So.
Exactly. And then we also said that in ayah 23 and 24 was the prescription in case I have doubt. Not so much a challenge to the world, a prescription to resolve my doubt. And so part of the point there, that as a prescription for doubt, it's saying if you have doubt about this, then you need to go through this process. Write something or find something that can go head to head against the Quran. So you need to resolve that doubt. Now that relates to what we're about to read. ayah 28. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم. So how takfuruna, how can you reject billah? How can you have rejection of Allah? Okay, knowing wa kuntum, and you were amwatan, you were dead, fa ahyakum, and He brought you to life. Okay, so how can you reject Allah? Knowing that you were dead and He brought you to life. ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. ثم يميتكم, then He will make you die. ثم يحييكم, then He will give you life. ثم إليه ترجعون, and then to Him you'll return. Okay. So this is a simple rational argument. Why would you reject, in our language today, why would you reject knowing you're going to die? Okay. Everybody agrees they're going to die. Okay. Except Google, right? Google's trying to find a cure for death right now. But, yeah, okay, that's a real thing. And so the point being that if I'm an atheist, to take my atheism, a'udhu billah, to its logical conclusion, I have to acknowledge that when I die, I'm just fertilizer. That's the best I'm going to be. Okay? And I don't care that I'm fertilizer because I'm dead. I don't have consciousness anymore. To take that point a step further, then that means that it doesn't matter how I lived my life. It doesn't matter if I saved all the people in the world or if I committed mass genocide. At the end of the day, my result is the same.
Do you know what's interesting about that?
No.
No.
So
He just totally shot you down.
What?
Sorry.
Continue. Go ahead,
So,
sorry.
no, I was just gonna say that one of my friends, he's like such an intelligent person, and he's an atheist, you know, and he's one of the most kind-hearted, generous, humble persons that I know. I mean, he doesn't believe in an afterlife, but truthfully, he has such good character, you know.
You definitely do find this with a lot of atheists, right?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That we usually think, again, of like the worst of the atheists, just like a lot of people think of the worst of the Muslims as representative of all Muslims, but with the common atheists, who usually
And there's almost like
nice,
this, I don't know
happy-
what it is, like, what do you think about this? Like, I almost feel like there's this purity in doing good for good's sake, but, you know, there's no place for that in Islam. It has to be for the purpose of pleasing Allah.
Okay, so is one better than the other?
I'm not saying that it is, but I don't think there's any
I'm
credit
asking.
given for just being good.
But isn't
for
it?
being
Because I'm
good.
doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like,
Isn't that a better purpose?
yeah.
That's what I'm asking. What do you
Yeah.
What makes it better? is
But the
question.
thing about it is, the reason I say that is
My
because
intention.
at the end of the day, it's a selfish reason.
You're saying
There's
it's
a-
not pure altruism if you're getting something.
That's what I'm
out of it.
Yeah,
saying.
that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think
So
it's
is-
defined as better.
Okay,
You know?
so at the risk of opening up a gigantic conversation, is it
She knows where
possible
this goes.
for something to be truly altruistic, truly selfless?
No, there isn't.
So therefore,
But if you feel that, you know, being good in your life and doing the right thing has no consequence, and yet you go out of your way to
Like
do
you're not
it,
doing it for reward after life.
you're not. That's why I'm saying you're not doing it for reward. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. There's something beautiful about
Doesn't
that.
he feel good
They
about
feel
it?
good.
Of course, but
So
but
then
the
he's
thing is
getting
that the
something out of
pull,
it.
Yeah.
but the pull of having a reward versus the punishment of doing something bad is much heavier, and there are lots of people who believe that, and they still don't act righteously. So I'm saying, you know,
Sure.
if it's just for the gratitude, that's pretty amazing
So
to me.
Solomon's class, they're actually reading Jeffrey Lang's book, and he talks about his initial.
oh, okay, I thought you were talking about like his public school.
No, in our class. So
So in your class, they're reading Jeffrey Lang's book.
So the Jeffrey Lang's book, they're just the first chapter, and one of the things that, and he talks about his atheistic faith, and he talks about how he is, maybe Jeff Solomon, because he'll do a better job with it, but how he was, you know, in other words, there's a sort of a sense in other words, it's almost proving that you can be your own God, that you can do things to be good, because in other words, it's part of that same spirit that leads to atheism, if you like, that says that, you know, I don't need God to do this, I don't need God to be altruistic. The end of it in of itself is to prove to yourself that I can be good, you know, quote unquote good, because the atheist himself acknowledges that there is no intrinsic benefit to being good, except, in other words, there's no final purpose to being good other than being good. Well, then what purpose is it serving? Essentially, you're trying to prove to yourself that I can, in spite of what everybody else is saying, I can be good because and I don't need God to do it. I don't need God. I don't need God as a reason to be. I can just be
The
good on
problem
my
with that philosophy is that it's not grounded.
Which philosophy? This
The
one or this one?
atheist philosophy,
Okay.
right? Because here, because our human nature has this tendency towards accountability.
Okay.
I mean, this is where we're hardwired to feel the sense of accountability. If you're doing good just to do good.